What's up, everybody? Welcome to Wise Guy Gazette. Today I'm going to be talking about some of my cameras and comparing and contrasting from DSLRs all the way down to 1-inch sensor compact, so it's going to be a fun one. I'm going to start from the smallest and work my way back, and so I'm just going to jump right into it. I apologize, I'm going to have to tap the screen to focus on each of these, so bear with me. And also we do have some noise in the room, so I do apologize for that. But the first one I'm going to talk about is this Nikon 1 J5. So this one's a fun one. If you're not familiar with the Nikon 1 system, they're a 1-inch sensor compact interchangeable lens camera system. And it was kind of Nikon's first attempt at a mirrorless system. Overall, it wasn't very commercially successful, but you can still pick these up. And this is actually, I believe, the newest body in the entire lineup. So the J5 actually has the best sensor in the entire lineup. It's the highest megapixel count. I believe it's one of the fastest. The Nikon 1 V3 is kind of from the higher, more prosumer level line. And so that one might be a little bit higher performing, but I do know for a fact that the J5 does have the best sensor. So this one I did pick up as kind of a multi-purpose, and as you can see, it's tiny. I think it's the second smallest interchangeable lens system after the Pentax Q system, so really tiny, fits in the palm of your hand. And then what I have on it is I only have one lens for the system. I kind of just keep these together and treat it like a fixed lens compact almost. But this is the 10 to 30 millimeter, which I believe is around a 28 to 80 millimeter, and it's a kit lens, so it's just f3.5 to 5.6, but it does have the same 1-inch sensor as the Sony RX100 series. So if you look at the earlier Nikon 1 series, they do use, I don't actually know in particular what sensor they use, but they started using the Sony sensor just for this last J5 camera, so it is by far the best performing of the 1 series. And so it will perform like an RX100. It doesn't have that, fast zoom lens that you'll get with the RX100, but you're still getting, the same sensor performance. And you can get some fast primes for this. I believe there's a 32 1.2. There's a 10 mil 2.8. I'm missing a couple, but they made a couple lenses for this system, and they kind of called it quits after a while. Due to, the biggest mistake I think they made was that they made these compact cameras, and the image quality is good, but weirdly enough, one of the biggest draws of this camera is that the performance is actually really good. So the continuous burst performance is really good. It has a no blackout viewfinder, and when I say viewfinder, I mean the back screen. It doesn't black out when you take pictures. And yeah, basically it's a fast performing camera. So they took advantage of that fast readout speed on the 1-inch sensor. And so these Nikon 1 series, not just this one, but most of them were pretty quick performing cameras compared to, let's say, like early Micro Four Thirds, which was kind of a contemporary to this camera. So what I've seen is that this is a really good camera for just capturing in good light, just general day-to-day, like I wouldn't say action, right? I don't have a long lens for this, but if you carry this in your car or just keep this in your pocket during the day, you're going to have a camera that can basically take any shot that you need within, in a pinch. It's not going to be good in low light. Well, if you keep your expectations in line, I'm about to talk about this. I'm going to talk about this Olympus in a second. That's a 1/1.7 inch sensor. So that one's, even lower performing in low light, but this one I still wouldn't really recommend in low light situations. It's just not that good. It does, mostly because we're using the kit lens here. So it's a slow lens on a 1-inch sensor. You're not really expecting too much, to be honest. So really fun camera. In terms of just features, like it has a built-in flash. It's a power zoom lens. Like I said, this is mostly for day-to-day usage. Around the house, I sometimes use it because in good light around the house, it does work pretty well. I do record some video with it, but the quality is not amazing. But yeah, Nikon 1 series, really fun. You can pick these up all day on eBay, I would say around $300 you can get the kit lens and the J5, and that's one of the more expensive of the 1 series. So if you want to go, you know, one of the originals in the lineup, I think you could probably pick up a whole kit for around $200, $150 on eBay or like whatever secondhand marketplace that you want to look at. So this is a good one, smallest in the lineup. And then I'm going to move to this Olympus. And like I said, this is a 1/1.7 inch sensor compact. Let me grab focus real quick. So this one, it's a nice little compact. It does have a small sensor, smaller than the Nikon 1 series even, but it does have a fast lens. So I believe it's a 28 to 112 f 1.8 to 2.5. So that's the equivalent full frame focal length. The aperture, I didn't do equivalency, but it is a fast lens. Very versatile. I find that 112 is enough for like day-to-day usage when you need to just get up close for something. And I wish it was 24 millimeter on the wide end. That would be nice, but the 28 is really good. So yeah, what do I do with this camera? This camera is my pocket camera basically, and travel camera. One of them actually. I take sometimes multiple, but this one is great because you can put this in a little pouch. I have a low pro pouch for it, and it fits in my front pocket of my jeans. And you have a 28 to 100 millimeter bright lens in your pocket, and you can basically just be covered for any shot. I mean, it's not going to be the best image quality, so to speak, but you're going to be covered. You're going to get the shot, and you know the focus is not the fastest, but I'm actually pretty used to slow autofocus. Like I said, the newest camera here is from, I believe, 2017, the Fuji. So you know I'm used to slow autofocus. So this one is really fun. I recently discovered this lineup, the XZ lineup of Olympus cameras. The XZ1 is the older one. It's a CCD sensor, so a lot of people kind of love that one for the colors, and they just really think that sensor has some magic to it. And then this is the second one, the XZ2. So you get, in my opinion, a better sensor. It's a CMOS sensor. It's, I believe they might be the same. They're both 12 megapixel, I believe, or maybe 10 and 12. But yeah, this one performs much better in low light. The lens is basically the same. I think it actually is the same lens. And yeah, this is just a faster, better performing camera. It does come at the expense of size. So I don't know if you can see, but let me grab focus on the grip. There is a small accessory grip on here, and you can unscrew that off. And that's a first party grip. So you can slim this down a little bit, but it is still larger in almost every dimension than the XZ1 that it replaced. So keep that in mind, but it does have better image quality. In my opinion, it's a faster performing camera, and I do prefer this. I mean, I haven't actually owned an XZ1, so I can't say that, but I chose the XZ2 for a reason, knowing that I could get the XZ1. I'm not really the type of person who's huge on CCD sensors, so I'd rather just get the better low light performance. This one's okay out to like 1600 ISO, and above that it looks okay. You can still get the shot, but like I said, there's a fast lens, so you don't really have to push the ISO that much. Like in daylight, you're obviously going to have to stop it down, but I find that for kind of evening situations in restaurants, things like that, if you're shooting it wide open, which by the way, super sharp lens wide open, so you can shoot it wide open, and you will get good image quality, and the ISO will rarely go above 1600 in most of those situations. So the images look pretty good. And then in daylight, which is where this one shines, like if a travel camera during the day, it's only 12 megapixels, so you can't really crop too much, but you do have a zoom lens built in. It's sharp. The colors are really good. Olympus always has really good daylight colors. It doesn't have the best artificial light white balance, but out in daylight, the colors and white balancing are really, really good. So this one I consider like a micro or a pocket micro four thirds camera. It shoots like a micro four thirds. It's obviously a much smaller sensor, but it does kind of shoot in daylight like a micro four thirds camera, but it's this big, super thin, fits in your pocket, and has that fast zoom lens. So this one's really fun, one of my favorites. And actually I want to touch on the XZ1 was the predecessor to this. The XZ2 is this. And then I actually had the XZ10 for a little bit, which is the last in the lineup. The XC10 actually went to an even smaller sensor, so it went to a 1/2.3-inch sensor, but it kept the fast lens, and it downsized the entire body even smaller than the XC1. So it's the smallest in the entire series. It's almost like a deck of cards. I had it for a little bit. It was super fun. Like, it actually fits in your pocket, which was cool. But, you know, ultimately the image quality was better on the XC2, and this still fits in my pocket. So this was my keeper out of the XZ series. And I do recommend these. And the last thing I'll touch on is pricing. You can pick these up. I'd say $200 all day will get you a pretty clean one on eBay. This one was $220 on eBay, but I wanted something really clean because I knew I'd keep this. So this one, you know, it's pretty much mint condition, $220, you know, all day. Really good camera. Okay, so this is actually a Canon EOS M2. And I know that the more common one would be the original M, but I actually would argue that the M2 is, or at least I would argue, is the perfect camera in the EOS M lineup for me. And I'll kind of get into that, but yep, this is an M2, which is an Asia exclusive, or it might be in Europe as well, but I know that it didn't come to the States. So yeah, I imported this from Japan, and this is actually my like daily pocket camera, and honestly one of my favorites in the collection. I just got this. It's so much fun. I'll get into the film sims. That's right, Canon film sims. I'll get into that in a second, but basically this is an APS-C 20 megapixel, 18 megapixel APS-C body, fits in the palm of your hand, and it's, I believe, still one of, I won't say that, it's one of the smallest interchangeable lens APS-C bodies that you can get. I know that it's smaller than the original M by about 10%. It's smaller than the M100, the M200 that came after it. There's probably something that I'm forgetting about, but it is one of the smallest. So that's kind of why I got it. And the image quality is amazing. You know, it really has kind of the old school Canon colors, like 60D, 6D. It looks really, really good straight out of camera. And I'll get into it in a second, but you can also do film sims with this. I mean, any Canon DSLR or mirrorless, you can do this, but you can upload up to 3 custom user-defined picture styles, and they're not just like standard vivid, they're actually full picture styles just like Fujifilm. So you can purchase or create your own and get these picture styles. I actually just purchased them off people who are more talented than myself, and I have, you know, some different film sims. I have some that I've created myself where I've just tweaked the standard profile a little bit. And basically you can just upload up to 3, and you can just shoot straight out of camera JPEGs with these film styles, and they look just as good as Fujifilm. And I'll get into it. I have an X-T2 right here. So they look really good. And, you know, this has just been a really good daily shooter. And I'll continue my argument about why this is the best EOS M lineup camera. It's the smallest in the lineup. It's certainly not the best performer, but it performs better than the original M. But it also retains the sensor of the original M, which a lot of people prefer the output on that one. I'm not really like a huge color snob, and I probably would prefer the M200 for its faster autofocus. But for me, as like a cheap beater camera I can just take anywhere, this was actually the perfect one for me, right? It's the smallest. It has actually significantly better autofocus, like I said, than the original M. And it works totally fine in daylight, and it works down to relatively low light. The biggest thing is that it just doesn't fire. It doesn't use the servo of the lens that well, because I know that this lens can focus much faster on an EOS M200 or M100, either one. So it's kind of just a limitation of it's just not driving the focus very fast, probably because it has to process slower as well. So, but this one is definitely, I think right now I'm on a kick with this one. Like, I carry this everywhere. I take it everywhere I go. Most of my pictures are out of this one. So this one I'm really enjoying a lot these days. So